basically.
Why is it called Sweetener?
Because it's kind of about like bringing light to a situation or to someone's life, or somebody else who brings light to your life, or sweetening the situation. Yeah.
Everyone needs a little sweetener.
Yeah.
In my video talking about albums and album cycles, I mentioned that albums are often checkpoints in the lives of artists. Looking at the discography of most artists, you can pretty much pinpoint at what point of their life they're in and what they were going through and at what stage of their career they were in just by the subject matter of a particular album. This applies perfectly to Ariana Grande. Ariana Grande's discography is a great example of a natural evolution and growth throughout an artist's career. You have Yours Truly, her debut album. She was still with Nickelodeon, so her image was kept clean, but it struck a nice balance of being kid-friendly while also sounding mature enough for adults to enjoy. Her sophomore album, My Everything, still kept things rather clean. She was on her way out of Nickelodeon though and becoming a pop force. The subject matter and lyrics on this album were a little more mature, but nothing too crazy. Next, we get to her third album, Dangerous Woman, where we really saw Ariana coming out of her shell and completely ditching the kid-friendly image. Dangerous Woman was a deliberate move to show her maturity and distance herself from Nickelodeon and embrace her womanhood. By the time of her third album's release, Ariana was pretty much inescapable. She'd had multiple hits and pretty much done the typical pop thing. It was only natural that her next album would be something more experimental and more personal. What we got was a masterpiece. Sweetener is one of my favorite albums of all time and perhaps the most vital album in Ariana's discography, second only to what came right after it. Nonetheless, the album has a spectacular look into a side of Ariana Grande that the world hadn't seen yet. She was no longer concerned with being a pop star. It was the beginning of her navigating her career on her own terms. She'd already proven herself as a staple in the music industry by this point, starting with the cover art of the album, which is a simple portrait of Ariana flipped upside down. Ariana stated that at the time of creating the album, she felt rather upside down, and that can be seen when looking at the context of the album's release. The year of Sweetener's release had been a whirlwind for the then 25-year-old singer. The tragic Manchester bombing at the Manchester stop of her Dangerous Woman tour had occurred the prior year, and Ariana later went on record saying how the incident caused her to have post-traumatic stress disorder. She ended her 2-year relationship with Mac Miller and in the same month began dating and became engaged to Pete Davidson. All of this occurring while being one of the most watched public figures on the planet. It's also worthy of note that this album cover was Ariana's first to be in color, a representation of a new chapter in both her life and her career. Sweetener is ultimately about healing and bringing light to a situation despite feeling like life is turning you upside down. It was truly Ariana's most personal record to date. It's definitely more personal. You know, I feel like Dangerous Woman was a grown-up My Everything, and this is a grown-up Yours Truly.
Oof. These two, I feel like, sound like my DNA.
Wow.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Or how I wish I felt. Not how I feel, but how I'm striving to feel.
Listen, when you sing these songs on stage, okay, you will tell people the story of how you felt when we were doing this song. That's what is so amazing.
Yeah.
You will have this to look back on.
It's an escape.
100%.
Not only did Ariana reveal more of who she was on the album, but she expanded her sound as well. R&B and pop were always her bread and butter, but she took it even further with this album, diving into alternative R&B, hip-hop, neo-soul, house, funk, and trap. Legendary producer Pharrell Williams produced multiple tracks on the album and also provided vocals, giving Ariana a refreshing new sound. Sweetener was much more than just another pop album. It was a soft reboot in many ways for Ariana. The Sweetener era kicked off with the release of its lead single, No Tears Left to Cry, on April 20th, 2018. It was Ariana's big comeback at the time and a fitting return to music with the song's theme of rising above negativity and overcoming one's struggles. In my aforementioned video about album eras, I stated how lead singles often set the tone of the era and give the listeners a taste of what to expect from the forthcoming album. No Tears Left to Cry is a fantastic example of this and was the perfect choice for Sweetener's lead single in my opinion. The song peaked at number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart. Worthy of note, 2018 was a year dominated by rap and hip-hop acts. Drake, Travis Scott, Post Malone, Cardi B, and the like all ruled the charts consistently all year. And that's not a bad thing at all. Rap and hip hop had long been overlooked in the mainstream, and it was long overdue for it to have its time to shine. Keep in mind that right before that, the EDM boom pretty much conquered all of the music industry, and nothing that wasn't David Guetta or anything like that was going to do anything on the charts. I just wanted to point that out because of the fact that Ariana was almost the sole pop star holding her own on the charts during a year where pop music pretty much took a back seat. The Light Is Coming, featuring Nicki Minaj, was released as a promotional single from the album on June 20th, 2018. Keeping with the theme established with the album's lead single, the theme of this song is optimism and bringing light to a situation. I distinctly remember when this song was released, a lot of people weren't fond of it at all, but I absolutely love it, and I see it as one of the album's highlights. It has such a distinct sound and doesn't sound like anything else on the album or in Ariana's entire discography. God Is a Woman served as the second single from Sweetener, being released on July 13, 2018. A pop/hip-hop female empowerment banger, the song is yet another highlight from the album. The official album release followed soon after on August 17, 2018, with the song Breathin' being released as the third and final single from the album on September 18, 2018. Sweetener debuted at number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart, and according to Billboard itself, is one of the 15 best performing albums of the 21st century without having any of its singles hit number 1. Although in my opinion, No Tears and God Is a Woman both deserve to be number 1. Drake was simply unstoppable that year, however. Regardless, Sweetener was Ariana's third number 1 album, and to this day is her fastest selling album. It scored the second largest sales debut in the US, only behind Cardi B's Invasion of Privacy. Once again, Billboard noted that Sweetener's strong performance on streaming was remarkable since rap music dominated the market at the time. The album would also later on earn Ariana her first ever Grammy Award.
Here we go, and the Grammy goes to Sweetener, Ariana Grande.
Despite it being such a monumental album and era for Ariana, Sweetener's album cycle was relatively short, only lasting 7 months. I mentioned before that by this point she was a pop force, but what was to come would cement her as an absolute pop icon.